That's probably a little particular about my story as well, that I've been on both sides of the
Yeah.
table.
Yeah.
Um, so already when my company got acquired, and decided to go in Germany, I was always, very interested in this whole process.
All right. Today I'm talking to Steffen Schebesta. Steffen is the CEO North America and Vice President of Corporate Development at Sendinblue. He previously co-founded Newsletter, which was acquired by Sendinblue in 2018. Hey, Steffen.
Hey, thanks for having
Steffen.
me.
Yeah, Steffen, when we scheduled our call, I used the Sendinblue scheduling form and I got a reminder via email and SMS an hour before the appointment. So it was a pretty smooth experience.
Yeah, that's how it should be. I mean, that's what we've really tried to excel in, is to have a very easy to use experience in all of our software.
Awesome. And to dive right in, like which of the apps that we used in that flow? So there was the meeting app, there was the SMS app, there was the email reminder. So which apps of these were actually built versus which were actually recently bought?
Yeah, so actually the entire meeting solution was just recently acquired. So this is something, where we'll probably talk about this later, like build versus buy,
Yeah,
is of course an important decision whatever we do. But this experience really from a company that we acquired externally.
yeah, yeah. Awesome. So I've actually been a Sendinblue user in the past for quite a couple of years. I think the last time I used Sendinblue must have been in 2019, and around like 2018, 2019, it was mostly like really known for being like the European email solution. And I think then they added a CRM at some point. That was kind of a really new, pretty much just contacts. And now, fast forward 2 years, like pretty much a lot of things have changed. So, can you give me a bit of context of where Sendinblue actually now plays in that whole digital marketing space?
Yeah, sure. So, like you said, basically we really started as an email marketing solution in the very beginning, like a lot of other companies in our field as well. And it kind of started with an agency first, like a web agency, and then we saw the need of an email marketing solution, so we went into email marketing. And over time, we added more and more features that complement that product. The overall mission of Sendinblue is to enable small and medium businesses to grow their business online and to stay in touch and foster their relationships with their customers. So email marketing is one channel that is highly profitable and works really well. But over time, we've seen that there's more demand from our customers, and we try to extend our product this way. So we added more channels, for example, text messaging, marketing automation. So we were one of the first
Mm.
ones to really offer comprehensive marketing automation. We have a landing page builder, Facebook ads, um, and like you mentioned, also a sales CRM. And then recently we acquired three companies in the e-commerce space who are helping us to include even more features, for example, on the push notification side, as well as the chat solution. So you can really talk to your customers, like conversational marketing and also messengers. Yeah, this is really our path forward to basically to provide a solution
Mm.
for all kinds of online marketing channels, and even
Yeah,
in customer service and even sales.
yeah. Talk to me a bit about the strategy behind that because you touched upon it just now already, but especially in the marketing field, like I have a marketing background and there's so many little gimmicks and apps and if you look on Product Hunt, there's new kind of marketing tools every day. So I imagine, especially for your M&A strategy, it's quite important to actually have a concise strategy, right? To actually see what you want to buy.
For sure. And Sendinblue is a very product centric company. And I know a product and customer centric company. And I know this, like a lot of companies say that about themselves, but I truly believe it's the case for Sendinblue. We've really focused on building the best product out there. And we've really focused on small and medium customers, which is, it's not easy because SMBs typically don't have that much knowledge in when it comes to tech or online
Yeah,
marketing or other tools. So we really have to provide a very easy to use solution that's
yeah,
accessible and affordable. So that's what we do. And we see like an increased demand. Of course, everybody is advancing,
yeah,
especially driven through the pandemic. Everybody had to go digital, and that was a big challenge for a lot of small businesses that they had to shut down maybe their offline store,
Mm.
and they all of a sudden they had to go digital. And so we are really trying to provide all the tools that are needed to grow your business online. And of
Oh,
course, it's a lot of marketing side, but also sales and customer service.
yeah,
And like I said, keeping in touch, like conversational marketing, I think has been proven very powerful, especially when you're not in touch offline anymore, or
yeah,
not as much at least.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's easy to say we're doing, like, we're trying to cover everything that SMB needs, but at the same time, you're also playing in an incredibly crowded space, probably the most crowded space in the software space, right? So, like, a couple of the things, like, of course, HubSpot is trying to be the all-in-one solution. Intuit recently bought Mailchimp, which was before kind of the big Sendinblue competitor. Klaviyo raised a huge Series D, I think it's
Yeah.
320 million or something. So, how do you manage to stand out? I mean, of course, like, I always use Sendinblue because it was the European competitor, you know. So that was my kind of, as a German, that was me. Okay, they have I think French originally, right? Or
Yeah, Sendinblue, yes,
yeah,
exactly. It's French originally. My company, Newsletter to Go, was founded in Germany and then acquired by
yeah,
Sendinblue, which made us the European market leader,
yeah,
like you mentioned. But of course, there are some competitors, especially in the US, that
yeah,
you just mentioned, like Mailchimp or Klaviyo,
yeah,
ActiveCampaign, HubSpot to a certain degree, that of course are really well funded,
yeah,
and the US is a huge market, and so typically you see that the US players come to Europe, other like over
yeah,
European players going to the US market, which we're trying to do
yeah,
currently. Um, yeah, so of course it's always challenging to stand out in a crowded market. However, there are differences in the offerings that the companies that you just mentioned
yeah,
have. And um, so, for example, Klaviyo is very focused on e-commerce,
yeah,
much more than anybody else. And HubSpot originally came from the CRM, from the sales side, and then
yeah,
they added marketing tools to it. We're more coming from the marketing side, and we're adding more. But I agree, like the overall vision is pretty similar for all these companies that want to provide this all in one solution
yeah,
to our customer to their customer base.
yeah,
Um, where I think you know, we execute really well. We have a broad feature set, and we're, like I said, we're very affordable and accessible, easy to
yeah,
use, and compared to a HubSpot, we're a lot a lot more affordable, and especially for SMBs, that's
yeah,
incredibly important. We're a European company, so data privacy has been increasingly important, especially
yeah,
with Apple and Google even going into that direction last year,
yeah,
and I think it's here to stay. So that's
absolutely.
really good as a European company following GDPR and so on, that we're very aware of this and comply with everything. Of course, we have great customer service in 6 languages, so
Yeah,
we provide customer service 24/7, basically from 3 different time zones,
yeah, and really
actually four
fast
different
also.
time zones.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah,
yeah, there's there's differences if you look in detail.
yeah, yeah, that makes total sense. That makes total sense. Let's talk a bit about buy versus build, because that's of course super interesting. I think I stumbled upon you, especially because in, I think it was September. So you raised a Series B, which was I think 160 million or something like that.
160 million
Yeah,
US, yeah.
160 in late 22. And looking at the track record after that, it was probably like mostly acquisition based, right? So in September, you bought three e-commerce related companies. I think one was in the push notification space, another one in the
Yeah.
email automation space. So tell me about those acquisitions actually, because I think they were all American companies, if I'm not mistaken. So tell me about the those acquisitions actually.
Yeah, so we acquired 3 companies. They're all in the e-commerce space. The first one was PushOwl, which is a web push notification
Yeah.
company specialized on the Shopify ecosystem. It's actually
Yeah.
one of the, I think, top 30 apps worldwide.
Wow.
Um, and they're actually based in India.
Wow.
So it's an Indian company. We already had an Indian office. One of the co-founders of Sendinblue was actually Indian, so we still have a big office there.
Nice.
So that was the first acquisition. The second one was a company called Metrilo from Bulgaria.
Okay.
They're really focused on e-commerce analytics, almost in the direction like CDP, and it gives you all kinds of information, very valuable
Yeah.
information on best-selling products, on customer lifetime, and so on. And combined with the marketing automation that we offer, It's very powerful. And the third one is a company called Chatra, and that is a globally distributed company.
Yeah.
It's a US company, but the founders are in Russia and Greece, and their employees are all over the world,
Mhm.
basically. And Chatra is really focused on e-commerce, um, chat solutions, messenger
Yeah.
solutions. That's what I mentioned before, the
Yeah.
conversational marketing.
Oh, awesome. And that was the only 3 transactions last year? Did you do anything more in the last, let's say, 12 months?
Yeah, that were the only transactions, and
Yeah.
now just very, very recently, we acquired an Austrian company called MeetFox,
Yeah.
and they're in the, scheduling and meeting space.
Oh, yeah. Was that actually the Meet Street that we used today?
Yeah, exactly.
Nice. The
Yeah.
MeetFox. Good job, guys. Good tool. I like it. Before we go into integration, because like that's something I want to touch upon later, like how do you actually integrate all these different solutions into your solution? I kind of want to take a step back and look a bit at like how you actually do M&A. So are you the only M&A responsible at the company, or do you have a little team around you?
So pretty much I'm the only one when it comes to managing the flow,
Yeah,
kind of, or the
yeah,
pipeline.
yeah,
Um, I have a lot of support, like internal support from, especially from our finance team,
yeah,
from our CFO. And then I just check in with a lot of stakeholders within the company that give me feedback on the ideas that I bring in,
yeah.
and also participate in the whole process.
Okay, okay, wow. And that's interesting because I checked your LinkedIn and I didn't see a traditional M&A kind of background. So how did you actually move into this role? I mean, you were acquired first, and then you
Yeah.
moved into the VP of corporate development role. So how did that happen?
Yeah, that's probably a little particular about my story as well, that I've been on both sides of the
Yeah,
table.
yeah,
Um, so already when my company got acquired and decided to go in Germany, I was always, very interested in this whole process.
yeah,
We worked with an M&A advisor back in the day. We
yeah,
talked to a lot of other companies, negotiations,
yeah, yeah,
SPA and so on. I thought it was quite interesting, and pretty interested in general in investing as well,
yeah,
and whole financing. So it kind of was not like I stumbled upon it basically.
yeah,
I just got involved in the projects internally last year when we started acquiring these three companies,
mhm,
and we needed some resource, we needed some help. So I was there, and I just participated in the process, which led to ultimately me being promoted to the VP of corporate development. And
yeah,
in that role, I managed, like I said, the whole pipeline basically of
yeah,
all of our M&A transactions.
yeah. How did you pick up the skills needed? Because I mean, you were on the selling side, of course, but how did
Yeah.
you pick up the skills needed? Because I mean, the M&A process is such a particular process and it's so standardized. And everyone kind of knows the game, right? And then you come in
Yeah.
as an outsider. You don't have a finance background. You don't have a legal background. So how did you pick up this process?
I don't know. It's just learning by doing, I think, in my case, really.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I don't have like investment banking background or anything like that.
yeah,
In the end, I think it's very similar to a sales process, though. Like
yeah,
in any kind of sales process, the companies that we acquired last year, they were partly opportunistic and partly very strategic. So
yeah,
we did outreach, and we had a long list, short list. We talked to a lot of candidates and
yeah,
started negotiating with them. So, I led the whole process, of course, and it's like with any kind of cold outreach,
yeah,
or any sales process, it's very similar. It's a very similar funnel. So I
yeah,
don't know. I didn't find it very
yeah,
difficult to get into this.
yeah,
Of course, you need to know a bit about finance and
yeah,
KPIs and about legal background. But in the end, I rely also, of course, on subject matter experts in each of these topics,
yeah,
working with lawyers, and like I said, our finance team's helping as well.
yeah.
Um,
So your finance team is mostly doing, let's say, modeling and valuation topics, or how do you say that?
so the finance team is doing, the financial due diligence.
Yeah,
I I would say I do some of the due diligence, like the high level due diligence. So I
yeah,
look at like
Yeah.
I have a list of financial metrics that I
Mhm.
always look at first. The most important ones like revenue, EBIT, growth,
Yeah.
and then all the, you know, the other metrics that are important for in the SaaS space,
Yeah.
like retention, customer lifetime value, customer acquisition costs, and so on. And we have we defined investment hypothesis basically last year
Mhm.
when we started acquiring more companies.
Okay.
And I try to follow that. I have my own framework.
Yeah.
I try to evaluate companies by that framework, and then depending on how good they perform, we continue or
Yeah.
drop out of a process.
Interesting. Is there anything you can share about that, hypothesis, or is it too confidential?
Yeah, I think I can share like high level.
Yeah.
It's not a big secret.
Yeah.
I mean, the type of companies that we've acquired were all um, relatively small. So our company now, Sendinblue, I think we just reached like 550 employees by
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
So we're not a huge company, but we're also, I think, we're not a startup anymore, right?
Yeah.
Maybe scale up or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And back in the day when my company Newsletter to Go was acquired, that was a whole different game. Newsletter to Go, I think, was 70 to 80 employees back in
Yeah.
end of 2018, and Sendinblue was about 150.
Yeah.
So it was almost like a merger of two companies rather
Well,
than a pure acquisition.
yeah.
Um, And I think we learned a lot from that process as well, because it, I think it was successful in the end, but it wasn't all, roses and butterfly.
Yeah.
It was a lot of hard work. And plus it was the first acquisition on both sides.
Yeah.
So we really had a lot of learnings from that. So, um, what we took from that was to rather go for smaller companies, maybe
Mhm.
up to 30 to 40 employees,
Okay.
which are easier to integrate. We're purely looking at product extensions.
Yeah.
So we're not looking to consolidate the market at this point, for example.
Yeah.
Like I said, we're a very product centric company. So we're really looking for companies that can complement our product and
Yeah.
make it better
Yeah.
and bring new value to our solution. So that's very important. We're looking for companies that grow faster than us, right? That's important. That have shown a first product market fit. So for
Yeah.
first product market fit, what does it mean? For me, it means that they reach at least 7-digit revenues.
Yeah.
I think that's a good like minimum standard that you should reach to show that you have reached some kind of product market fit.
Yeah.
Then there has to be like a clear path to profitability. It doesn't have to be profitable at the time, but it shouldn't be. You shouldn't make 1 million in revenue and burn 10 million
Yeah. Of
every
course.
year.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's nothing we would look into. Um, for us, the way we integrate products and teams is that really focused on keeping the team on board.
Mhm.
We believe in, building the best team together, and we
Yeah.
believe that the founders should stay on board. So it's, again, it's not a consolidation play where
Yeah.
we try to get rid of the team and just, keep the revenue and the
Yeah.
customers. For us, it's really important that the team is on board, that they stay on board, and that they're motivated to build something bigger with us. So that's
Yeah.
super important as well.
And you're an
And of
example of
course,
that. Yeah.
yeah, and of course, it has to be some kind of attractive market for us. Might be a little different target group, or
Yeah.
might be a little different product, and so on. And I
Yeah.
think, I mean, the examples that we had, the push notifications, a feature
Yeah.
that we hadn't offered, or the chat solution with a messenger solution,
Yeah. Yeah.
a feature that we had offered, but with the acquisition, it will become much, much better. These
Yeah.
are good examples of things that we're interested in.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell me a bit about also your acquisition, because you just mentioned, okay, you were 80 and you were acquired by a company with 140 employees. Was that then a complementary feature at that point, or was it a competitor, or how was that interaction back then?
Yeah, back then, I don't think it was the same type of acquisition as we do currently.
Yeah.
It was much more the market extension in this case, a
Yeah.
geographical extension. Um,
Yeah.
so Newsletter 2 was super strong in the German speaking market, Germany, Austria, Switzerland. and a bit in the Nordics and Netherlands,
Yeah.
but we didn't really succeed in, in other European countries or in North America.
Yeah.
And then in other European countries, we saw, bigger competitors. There was Mail Up in Italy,
Yeah.
and there was Sendinblue and Mailjet in France. So Europe is kind of hard to crack in a way
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
there are so many different cultures and languages, whereas the US is maybe a little more homogenous, I would say,
Yeah.
or at least from like a culture and language standpoint. Yeah, so it was not easy to basically fight against these local players in the European market. And our goal was to build something global, something bigger than just Europe.
Yeah.
And we, like you mentioned, we had these US competitors that had a lot of money, that had a big market share. And for us, it didn't make sense to compete with the European companies that were relatively small compared to the
Yeah.
US players, while there's the big players out there that we should
Absolutely.
fight together in a
Yeah.
way. So that's kind of how we saw it, and this is why we started the process back in 2018 to see if there's any
Yeah.
European player that could complement us. And in the end, Sendinblue was super strong in France,
Yeah.
obviously UK and Spain, so it was very complementary,
Absolutely.
and made a lot of sense back in the day.
True. And is your team or is a big part of your team still on board now 2 years after the acquisition? Or 3 years actually. Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually over 3 years now.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, but I mean, there's also normal,
Yeah.
normal churn in the team. So yes, we still have people who were part of Newsletter to Go. We're still in Send and Blue. I'm still here as well. My colleague CEO
Yeah.
of the Berlin office, Max, is also still on board, but also some people left, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course not. How is it for you to be an ex-founder now working in I wouldn't say a corporate because Blue doesn't have like a huge corporate structure yet, but of course you were a founder, you built the company from scratch and now you work in a pretty big company. How was the transition for you?
Yeah. So when I joined Send and Blue, of course, things changed quite dramatically, I would say, for me.
Yeah.
And I had to find my new role. And then in 2020, I had the opportunity to move to Toronto, to the East Coast, to open our North America business. In a way, we've had an office in Seattle since 2015.
Yeah.
That office is very focused on customer service, basically customer
Yeah.
service, customer success. So we didn't really have an office in North America that was focused on go-to-market strategy, business
Yeah.
development, marketing, and so on. And we had seen a good uptick in activity in the North American market, good traction,
Yeah.
and good trajectory. So we really wanted to open this kind of business development office on the East Coast as well, because communicating between Europe and Seattle, it's 9-hour time
Yeah.
difference. It's not easy. It's very little overlap. So we decided to open an office on the East Coast. And then, yeah, I said, well, I'll go and open it here. So we moved here in mid of 2020, in the middle of the pandemic. There's
Yeah.
either things to do for sure, but it still worked out in the end. Yeah, no, it's still a small office. We're 17 people in Toronto at the moment,
Yeah.
but it's growing nicely, and yeah,
Yeah.
that's really our focus now. And for me, as a founder, it kind of feels like I'm building something again, a new team, which is
Yeah.
really fun. So that's also part of my responsibility of it. I'm the
And it looks
CEO of North
beautiful.
America.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
exactly.
a nice office.
It's a
Yeah, for
nice
sure.
office for sure, yeah, in a good neighborhood. Let's talk a bit about integration because, of course, the big challenge in marketing tech is always kind of the integration part and how do all the tools belong together in a way. And of course, some of your competitors they've either built everything or try to be the all-in-one solution. It's also kind of the direction you're trying to take. How do you integrate companies? So where do you start when you look at integration? Because of course, the tech stack is also can be completely different. The experience and team can be completely different. So walk me a bit through it. Like, how do you,
Yeah,
first of all, when do you start with integration? Do you look at it already before the acquisition, or
yeah,
and then how does it work?
sure. Well, I think in general, the types of companies that we acquire, they're very similar when it comes to the company culture and DNA. So the product approach is typically very similar to what we
Yeah,
offer. Uh, when it comes to the persona, like SMB space,
yeah,
when it comes to the user experience in general, easy to use and affordable. So that makes things easier. And then
mhm,
always we have a high priority on the team, and
mhm,
we see, if the team is willing and excited about this mission, and that's, you know, half of the game plan already, to have the team on
yeah,
board. If the team is motivated, they'll do everything they can. I think in our company,
yeah,
like I said, we've been growing pretty fast.
absolutely.
It kind of feels like a startup still, but it's getting bigger and we're more of a scale up now, and we have, some structures and so on. So some growth pains, I would say, in
Yeah,
general,
yeah,
which is not easy to overcome. And so, as a founder joining Sendinblue, I think it's super important to be proactive as well. I always tell everybody, before they join as well, because we don't have like a playbook, for example,
yeah,
to roll out. Every company is has its own custom plan, kind of its individual plan,
right,
depending on how strong they are in their market.
yeah,
For example, push out, right? Push out is a very strong contender in the Shopify marketplace. We don't want to cannibalize the brand there.
yeah,
They're kind of like their own business unit. So they run push out at the same time they integrate their features into Sendinblue.
oh,
And this is kind of the approach that we take most of the time, where we try to give these teams and the founders that we acquire still a lot of um, autonomy and
mhm,
power, that they can still lead their teams and their products.
yeah,
Because in the end, we're acquiring them for their knowledge and for what they've built, and we know there's a good trajectory behind that
yeah,
project. So we don't want them to follow only our rules. We want them to be empowered and continue building what they've built, just in a bigger context,
yeah,
and giving them access to more tools, more resources, more money, right? That's what we can help with. And this is,
yeah,
I think, where we're strong. So long story short, there's no playbook. Everybody is different.
yeah,
We start talking about integration on a high level before we do a deal, of course, because we have to
yeah,
see what the founders think about this plan. We have
yeah,
to internally agree what the plan is, and if it makes sense, and how long it will take.
mhm,
And like you said, there's always the question if build or buy is better. And sometimes, we also decide that maybe building one feature internally makes more sense than acquiring a company in that field.
yeah,
So yeah, we try to talk about this high level before the acquisition, and then
yeah,
we start to work on it on a team basis, basically, on
yeah.
each team.
How closely are you integrated with, the product department or the product strategy in Sendinblue? Because that sounds like product essentially needs to be there for half the conversation.
Yeah, for sure. So we basically made a strategic decision on where Sendinblue should, or what Sendinblue should evolve into. So we had
Mhm.
some workshops with the whole C-level basically last year,
Yeah,
and that kind of laid out the strategy for the next year when it comes to M&A strategy.
yeah,
So that's always important. And then, of course, when I have a product demo, for example, or a tool that I'm interested in, then I try to include the product team. I have, bi-weekly meetings with our CPO. So I talk to him quite a lot, get
yeah,
his feedback, and so on. So I'm actually, my background at Newsletter to Go was a lot on the product and tech side as well.
mhm,
So I think I can, like, I have a more or less a good evaluation at high level. And
yeah,
then when it comes to more details, I always include the product team.
yeah, 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 makes sense. Steffen, I want to close the conversation with a couple of, rapid fire questions. What is your biggest headache leading M&A?
Leading M&A. So sometimes I really like a product and I just can't get hold of the founders. That has happened to me a couple of times in the past. where I'm like, oh, this would be an awesome fit. This looks like a great company, great reviews, and looks like a great team, but just nobody's responding. And I try through all kinds of ways to contact them through network, through cold emails, phone calls, and so on, but just never be able to reach anybody. So
Yeah.
that's pretty frustrating.
Yeah. What is something that you need from your CEO in order to be successful?
I think the most important thing is feedback, right? So I I get probably 5, 6 decks every week, more than one opportunity every week. And, I sort out 80, 90% of it. And then it's super important to align with our global CEO on the strategy and get feedback on the opportunities that are left. I think that's super important.
Awesome. And last question, how do you stay on top of the market?
Um, it's a good question. I think it's a mix of being proactive and also at the same time, getting a lot of information myself. So for example, we have some internal channels in our Slack where we collect a lot of resources, a lot of developments on the market that we share with others. So
Mhm.
that's always a good source of new developments, of course. And then for me, I read blogs and so on that
Yeah.
I'm interested in. We have a PR firm that we work with who's always trying to push like new topics and is always on top of the game. So that's always good, of course, to stay in the loop as well.
Awesome. Steffen, thank you so much for your time. Where can our followers reach you if they want to sell their company, work with you, ask you a
Yeah.
question?
Yeah, I think the easiest way is to go through LinkedIn, Steffen Schebesta on LinkedIn, if you want to connect. And if you have a proposal, I think it's easiest to send a message there. And I typically respond unless it's spam or promotional. So that's I think the easiest way. And of course, sendinblue.com if you need any other resources.
Awesome, Steffen. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.